is Sam, and thanks for checking out this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and click the little bell to get the notifications, and give the video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending on how you felt about it. I'm really happy with this reading week. It was like a normal reading week for me, which I didn't think I was going to get any of those with the summer/spring with all of the outreach work I have to do. But I was really able to crack down and like power through quite a few books, and some of them I was total trash for, so it's always a good sign. It was a really good reading week, I think, for books that I loved, as well as just the number I read overall. So the first book that I read this week, and man, I plowed through this one in about 6 hours. Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. I read this because the movie is coming out. I'll link the movie trailer below. I'm so excited. Having read this, I actually don't think any of the dialogue from the trailer was even in the book, so I'm sure that they've changed a good chunk of it, but the plot itself seems to be the same, and I just love this book so much. It follows our main character, Rachel, who is, I think, like in her, like, she's 28 or something like that. She's an economics professor at NYU, and she meets a fellow professor. I think he's a law professor or a history professor through NYU, and they start going out, and they've been together for, between a year and 2 years, and she doesn't know a ton about his family and his background, and he's got a British accent, and he's of Asian descent, and that's really all she kind of knows. His, like, best friend, really, is getting married in Singapore, so he wants to go back to be the best man, and so he naturally takes his asks his girlfriend, and she decides to come since they've got the summer off from teaching, so that he can introduce her to his family. She shows up and finds out that his family are, like, bajillionaires. They're, like, the elitist of the elite in Singapore, and she alone doesn't even know who her father is, and it's just, like, chaos of, like, she keeps kind of getting, like, hazed by, like, really jealous girls who want her boyfriend because he's rich and eligible, and, like, there's a lot of, like, kind of very traditional, almost like British, and they do acknowledge that it's a very British thing of, like, just, like, gossiping and keeping it, like, within, like, the wealthy families, and, like, there's an outsider coming in and encroaching on your territory, and, like, his mom is, like, not down for this because she doesn't think that this girl Rachel is, like, telling the truth, and there's so much drama. And there's not even their plot, but there's, like, her, one of the other plots that's actually quite prominent is the Rachel's boyfriend's best friend kind of sister who has marital problems, and things start going downhill really, really fast. And then you have their marriage going on, so there's that relationship, and then there's another relationship going on in the background where there's someone trying, like, essentially like a gold digger trying to take advantage of someone else, and everyone else can see it but him, and there's just it's such a good, trashy summer book. I could not put it down. I literally think I put it down once, and it was because I had to, like, get out of the car or something like that. I was listening to it on audiobook, and then as soon as I got back in the car, and I literally sat in my car for the final 30 minutes of the audiobook because I didn't want to get out to stop the audiobook. It's so good. It's just, like, there's nothing really to it. It's just total, like, family drama trash, but it's so much fun. I love getting, like, all the, like, they travel a lot of different places, and I love getting to see, like, the elite, as well as I find it really interesting to see, like, the remnants of a lot of different parts of history. So, like, Singapore is in Asia, however, it was a British colony, and it has really basically been taken over by Chinese. And so it's, like, all these, like, super, like, ridiculously wealthy Chinese families running these, like, operations in Singapore, and, like, but I mean, like, they're very, like, westernized almost. It's just really, really interesting. It's so much fun. I loved it. I didn't like one of the plots just because I felt like I didn't like how the main female character acted about it. Like, I was like, you're a strong, independent woman. Why are you doing this? But other than that, totally loved it. I'm so happy I have China Rich Girlfriend on. And then yesterday I went and bought the third and final book in the series, Rich People Problems. And I plan on reading them all by the end of this summer and continuously reading them every summer because I'm total trash for them. I don't even know why. I just loved it. And only thing that I didn't really like about this was the kind of conclusion. I like that there was kind of a wrap-up with Rachel's dad, because it is mentioned, like, kind of hinted a couple times that she doesn't know who he is, she doesn't know who he is, and you kind of keep getting the sense that with Rachel's boyfriend's mom looking into this, something is going to come up. I didn't see what was going to come up, and I thought it dealt with a lot of, like, interesting things that have happened in history, like China's one-child problem, and I have heard of people doing what happened, so I really, like, thought that was a really good, interesting part. However, I got to the end and I was like, wait, there was no, like, bachelor moment, like, there was no final rose or anything like that, but I'm sure that's coming in the next book, but, oh, just in case you didn't pick up on that, I gave that Crazy Rich Asians a 5 out of 5 stars. I also finally finished Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling, or Rowling, we say Rowling in Canada, I think it's supposed to be Rowling, though, it's a British, I don't know, we all know who I'm talking about, but we follow Harry, Hermione, and Ron going back to Hogwarts for their their 5th year, where chaos has been ensuing over the summer within the government, the Ministry of Magic, because Harry and Dumbledore have been vocally saying that Voldemort is back, and the, what's his name? Filch? No, that's the caretaker. Fudge. Fudge, the Minister of Magic, is absolutely refusing that it's actually happening. He doesn't want to acknowledge it because he thinks Dumbledore is making a power grab for his position. And then naturally we meet the villain of all villains, Professor Umbridge. She is an abomination of a creature and I hate her so much. But because Umbridge is, I can't even, like, I cringe every time I hear someone go, Naturally, Professor Umbridge takes over the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, and she's a crazy lady. Like, her punishments are to, like, scratch, like, instead of writing lines, it, like, indents it into your hand to make you bleed. Like, she's a messed up woman. And she tries to, like, use one of the unforgivable curses and, like, oh, Fudge will understand because I'm doing it in the name of the Ministry. Because she refuses to admit that Voldemort is back. As we get on, like, as I keep, like, reading the books, like, farther on in the series and seeing, like, how much bigger they are than the, like, the first one, I honestly forgot how much was omitted from the films. Obviously, for time constraints, they have to. They can't possibly put, like, 800 pages into, like, a 2-hour film. That's just not doable. And really, they don't have the time, or I think, like, really anyone had the patience for them to split all these books into 2 movies. It would just be infuriating. So, I honestly it's just been so long since I read them, I totally forgot about all of the things that happened. I also feel like we get more Cho Chang in this book, whereas, like, in the film, she kind of just drops off the face of the earth and, like, appears and then just drops off, and that's kind of it. And, like, we get more of that in here. I also love the Dumbledore's army. That's probably my favorite aspect of this, and Dumbledore's moves. However, Dumbledore's really, like, I feel like we've fantasized him a lot in the films. Like, he's kind of like a messed up wizard human in this. He's, I don't know if, like, abusive is the right word, but, like, for someone as old and, like, as wise as, like, he's painted to be, he, like, I don't know why he withholds so much information from Harry. Like, you knew this was going to happen. And some of the stuff, I don't know why that it was written so that he did withhold it. It just didn't make any sense to me. At the end, there's this long monologue of him being like, oh, I should have told you all this information. I was like, yes, that should have been told in the first year when you realized that he was going to be having this battle. And yeah. Also, as I'm reading this, I'm fairly certain that it talks about the first one prophecy. I legitimately, like, it's just dawned on me, Harry's not the chosen one. It's Neville. Like, knowing what I know going forward, like, I'm rereading them, Neville's the chosen one. Like, I legitimately never even thought of that when I was reading this. I was like, oh, but Rowling told us it's not. He's the chosen one. It's, like, bluntly obvious to me now at, like, almost 26 years old. I also really like that these books give us more of Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon and Dudley, because, like, they're, like, very, like, kind of pushed off screen or after, like, the first, like, you know, couple scenes in the films. But I feel like we get a better sense of Aunt Petunia in this. Not that she's a good person or anything like that, because, I mean, like, she's still kind of, like, meh about her, but she does play a much larger role in everything than the films portray her to be, and I actually really like that part of it. Like, she's still got those family ties, and, like, she still does have some sort of, no matter if she doesn't want to verbalize it, but either some connection to Harry and or his mother, or maybe she keeps Harry around because she wants that connection to her sister, even if she didn't have the best of relationship with her. That's maybe, like, the last kind of piece that she has of her sister. Oh no, it was just actually really like that part that we get more of Petunia and Dudley and all that stuff. Still love it. It's not, like, it's no Prisoner of Azkaban, because it's still my favorite one, but I love the concept of the Order of the Phoenix. I love Sirius Black. I cry so hard when, like, the ending of this book happens, and I loved all of the pieces of these books where we get to see Sirius playing that father role and that friend role, because Harry really does need both of them, and he's trying to make up for all those lost years, and it's just so, like, my heart just, like, kind of squeezes when I think about that, and, like, man, I just love this series so much. Then I picked up The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan, the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series, and I'm finally back on reading my Rick Riordan. Having actually not read this, I actually think I prefer this book to the Percy Jackson books, like any of them, really. I found this one, it's a little bit thicker too, so that may be why there was just a bit more development. But I loved it because one of the main characters is half Cherokee. I love that we got some indigenous representation there, and I just found it was really, really cool. Like, there was a little bit more mystery to, like, the plot is, like, this kid, Jason, like, wakes up in, like, on a bus and then finds out, like, 20 seconds later of, like, his memory's been wiped. He supposedly has a girlfriend and a best friend, and they're going to the Grand Canyon, and then there's a big attack of, you know, the gods and all that kind of stuff. For whatever reason, Zeus has cut him, like, the heavens people off from the gods. They don't totally understand why and what's going on, and all of a sudden they're recruited to, you know, Camp Half-Blood. And, however, there's this weird thing that Jason keeps referring to things in the Roman terminologies and not the Greek terminologies. Because they have very similar things that they just kind of adopted over, where, like, personalities changed and, like, maybe powers and that kind of changed, but the people, like, Zeus is still Zeus. He's just referred to as something else in Roman culture. So Jason keeps referring to things by the Roman names. They're trying to figure out exactly why he is like that. And then our main character, Piper, who is Jason's kind of girlfriend, is the daughter of Athena, and her father's been kidnapped and she's being blackmailed, essentially. And then they're kind of like buddy. Leo is like this tech wizard, and he like fixes it, and that's where like the dragon comes into play, and like we meet King Midas, and there's a couple of the other different gods that kind of pop up too. And we go to Quebec City. No one ever goes to Canada in fantasy novels. I was so floored when that happened. I think I gave it like a 4 or 5 out of 5 stars. There were a couple parts that lagged for me that I found a little bit slow. I really, really enjoyed this, and I'm definitely going to keep reading on this series for sure. Then I picked up Moxie by Jennifer Matthew. This book. I think I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. So I almost DNF'd this book several times, which might make you think, huh? Then why did you give it 5 out of 5 stars? I went to a Catholic school in Southern Ontario where we had a principal who refused to fund anything properly and dumped money into the boys football team, which were like tier 3, and I think they'd won 1 game in 5 years. And he was not a very well-liked principal in our school of like 3,000 kids or something like that. Because we went to a Catholic school, actually we had uniforms, and the year before I went, they removed skirts and skirts as an option for girls' uniforms because boys were looking up the skirts of girls. So we just had to all wear pants now. Now, I don't think I ever heard of anything in my high school going to the extreme of like March Madness of ranking girls and like getting points and everything like that. However, it would not honestly surprise me. Our main character, Vivian, is the daughter of a single mother in a very small town, and she goes to a school which is just littered with double standards. If you've ever watched the news or like looked at things online about dress codes, especially for girls, this is like, it's everything like that in this book. And it's honestly just so infuriating. This crap still happens. Like I said, my school, removing skirts from the dress code because guys can't be decent enough human beings to not look up girls' skirts. The solution is not to tell girls to put pants on. It's to slap the dudes and explain to them why they're doing what is wrong. You can't pretend in this world we have where there's a Brock Turner that is the answer to this problem, because they just grow up and then do, you know, a Brock Turner. Like, it's infuriating, and like, I know I'm not the only one that had a high school experience like this with the massive, ridiculous amount of double standards. It was always girls getting sent to the office to get dress code slips because it was always the girls that were not in proper uniform, or like, you know, measuring this like the size of spaghetti straps. Like, that's just a really messed up mentality to have. But our main character, Vivienne, starts this like kind of like news flyer, or she calls them zines. They're old like kind of rebel feminists used to do them, but she's bringing them back, and she posts them anonymously and starts calling out the double standards in the school. And their hella sexist principal keeps slapping it down until his son is accused of trying to rape someone, and then everyone thinks it's this other girl, and then at the end it's a total twist of who is actually the accuser. And in the end, there's, you know, there's some kind of justice as well as not. And it's honestly just very real that, like, whenever you hear about things like that, you know, like, we'll use the example of Brock Turner again, of like, you know what, we know what Brock Turner did. He didn't get what he should have gotten in terms of the law. And however, but I mean, like, society has been clapping back where the law can't fill in with like a lot of social media stuff. Like, you know, you will never be able to, you know, apply for a job without an employer Googling your name. And, you know, Brock Turner's gonna have a hard time with that one, as well as like sometimes being on lists. But when you look and reflect on how it affects the women long term, who are all very commonly the victims of this kind of stuff, it's really messed up that our society is doing some of this stuff still. So this book, like, really does touch on a lot of it, and I feel like it's a very realistic ending, and I honestly don't want to have to ever read this book again, but I feel like it's something that people should read. I also finally finished my arc for My Name is Victoria by Lucy Worsley. This follows the story of Miss V, so Victoria, who was the daughter of I think it is Cromwell, who was the comptroller, kind of financier, house-running dude for the mother of Queen Victoria before she was queen. And if you've never heard of it, there was something called, like, the Kensington system, where, like, they essentially, like, just, like, hid Victoria and never let her, like, socialize with people. They said it was for her benefit, for her safety and that kind of stuff, but it was very sketchy things, like, essentially, like, trying to manipulate her so that he could take control and power. So we meet Miss V, who is taken as, you know, by her father to Kensington Palace to be, like, Victoria's friend. And that way he can still find out exactly what Victoria is talking about at, like, you know, 12 years old or whatever age she is here, and keep manipulating her and finding out through his daughter what's going on. And over the years, Miss V and Victoria grow together. Obviously, they've got this blossoming friendship, and Miss V sees a lot of the issues that's going on with the Kensington system. Princess Victoria goes through, like, a sickness, and then she sees her father, like, actually try and make her sign a document to take over, and that's where things seem to really switch for her. You know, she just finds out along the way that he's been hiding a lot of information that benefits him and no one else but him. And you see, like, all of the people that have to be, like, are forced into the Kensington system because they're just, like, they don't have any power. And if they try and fight back, which someone does in here, they're just fired and someone is brought in to replace them to impose the Kensington system. So it's very, very interesting. And it was very clear from the beginning, like, by, like, chapter 3 or 4, what the big twist at the ending was going to be. I'm not going to say it, but, you know, Miss V and Princess Victoria look alike, and they have opposite, you know, like, personalities, where Miss V is very outgoing and can take things on, whereas Princess Victoria has massive tantrums, and she doesn't really want to be a princess. She constantly talks about she just wants to be a normal girl. And then, naturally, we meet Albert, who Princess Victoria, our Queen Victoria ends up meeting and marrying. They have several children before he passes away, and Prince Albert falls in love with Miss V. I'll leave it at that. I'm sure you can fill in the gaps there. But it's actually really, really fun, and I liked it was a fun twist. It didn't take itself super seriously, and it was just really fun because Lucy Worsley, the author, is actually one of the curators of the royal palaces, so I always love getting that information and seeing how they can paint it. I'm someone who, one of my all-time favorite films is The Young Victoria, with Emily Blunt in it, so this was just, I've only ever imagined Queen Victoria really as, like, a mid-20-ish-year-old Emily Blunt, and her relationship with Albert in the film. So I think that's still my default, but this was just a fun twist on that, where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, a young Victoria, oh, she's throwing a tantrum, I didn't think of that, like, so, yeah, it was fun. I think I gave it, like, a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And last but not least, I finished reading The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes tales, which has, I think there's, like, 8 or 9 tales within there about stories that, some of them Sherlock Holmes fixes or, like, solves, and some of them he doesn't. And this is actually in one of the tales in here is where we meet Irene Adler, and I think actually that's the only story that she ever appears in. We've really, like, taken that lady and run with her in our TV and film adaptations. But I actually really liked these. I feel like reading these stories helped me, like, magicize, I guess, Sherlock Holmes. In the films, like, especially, like, the BBC version, he's essentially, like, a wizard, okay? Like, no one could put together all of the things that he does, and, like, the plots and mysteries are so ridiculously complex, and, like, Stephen Moffat does, like, an amazing job writing them. I never see the ends coming. And then you look back and it's like, oh my god, I missed so many things. Whereas, like, the stories, like, I mean, it's obviously a product of the time period, but, like, I was able to guess the ending of, like, 3 of them, like, 20 seconds in. So I just really like the writing, though, of it, and it's, like, a fun, like, the entire, like, how it's being portrayed of, like, Watson telling the story about Sherlock, and, like, sometimes he doesn't solve them, which I actually like that they've included those. Not everything is, like, illegal, but some things are morally wrong, so they touch on that kind of stuff in here, too. So the next one I have is the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, and I'm really actually curious to read the one where he actually dies. I think maybe it is the Memoirs. I don't know. But he dies, and then a bunch of people got angry, so Sir Arthur Conan Doyle brought him back. And yeah, I'm just really excited. I want to meet Moriarty, too. I don't think I've actually met him yet. I actually really enjoyed, though, specifically the story of the 5 Orange Pips, because I had never read that one before, but that's a pretty massively well-known one in the BBC adaptations, and I did not realize that it was about the KKK, the original story. So those are all the books that I read this week. Let me know in the comment section down below what you read this week, or if you've read any of these and what you thought of them, and would love to know. Make sure to check the description box down below as well for links to all of these books' Goodreads pages, as well as a link to my social media. If you follow me, I will follow you